Salzburg, Austria. It's a beautiful European city, famous for Mozart, its depiction in the classic film The Sound of Music, and its long history. I was, of course, also interested in their food. In particular, I was on a mission to try a Salzburger Nockerl, an epic dish that's a specialty of the city. Today I'm here in the beautiful Austrian city of Salzburg. I've been here 2 days so far and I'm absolutely loving it. I've had some really incredible food and seen some absolutely stunning sights. Although not everything has been perfect, but still I'm having a great time. So my Salzburg adventure actually started 2 days ago in Vienna. After checking out of my hotel, I went to Michelin station to board my 9:35 a.m. train to Salzburg. At the station, I purchased an Americano and a mediocre pistachio croissant for breakfast. It wasn't bad, but it was just what I needed to get me going. Soon enough, I was on board the train and had the chance to admire the lush green landscapes and hills of Austria. I tried to do some reading, but I found it difficult to pull my eyes away from the window. Even in the cloudy, rainy weather, the country looked beautiful. And speaking of the weather, I was concerned with the forecast for Salzburg. It didn't look good. Nevertheless, I was gonna make the best of it, and I soon found myself in Salzburg after a 2-hour and 18-minute train ride. My first order of business was to check into my accommodation, the A&O Hostel, which I wasn't much of a fan of, but I would be finding that out later. However, it was too early to check in, but I was at least able to drop off my bag, and then I was off to begin exploring Salzburg. Salzburg is beautiful, but I had to get on schedule. Time was moving fast and I needed to eat lunch. I didn't have anywhere in mind and I wanted something quick, so I went to a simple sausage stand. I got the Pusterkreiner sausage with mustard and bread. I didn't know what the hell a Pusterkreiner sausage was, and I'm not even really sure what it is now. However, I liked it. I also made a stop to a nearby bakery for a cinnamon roll and a much needed shot of espresso. After that, I returned to the hostel to officially check in, and then I really got to exploring Salzburg as the weather improved and the sun made an appearance. I was hyped, so I went to one of the top sites in the city, the Mirabell Garden. I'm here at the Mirabell Garden, and obviously this place is famous for the role it played in the film The Sound of Music, but the garden is beautiful by itself. And it's not just the actual landscaping of the garden, it's the sights and scenery that surround the garden that make this place truly special and very photogenic. I have been rifling off photos from my camera non-stop. I mean, this place is like a postcard, it looks so perfect. Every once in a while, the clouds will just open up and it will reveal a stunning vista like the Europe of one's dreams. It's just so perfect and fairy tale-like. I feel as though if the Mirabell Garden wasn't featured in The Sound of Music, it would be almost just as popular as it is today. It's simply stunning, from the design to the abundance of colorful flowers. The garden is a true treat for the senses. There's even unicorns here, wow. Damn, that guy's got a grin. Even the areas surrounding the garden provided a couple of surprises. So right next to the Mirabell Garden, and I just discovered this by chance. According to the sign here, this is Europe's oldest dwarf garden. I don't even think I've been to a dwarf garden before. This is interesting. Some people here really seem into The Sound of Music, and I like the movie. It's been a while since I've actually seen it. I probably should have rewatched it before I went here, but yeah, I'm gonna have those damn songs stuck in my head for the entire time I'm in Salzburg, I think, but could be worse. With various songs from The Sound of Music stuck on repeat in my head, I continued my wanderings. The Mirabell Garden isn't very big, but it seemed like at every angle there was a new vision of beauty to take in. So I just finished exploring the Mirabell Garden, and I was there much longer than I thought I'd be, but everything was just so beautiful and it just demanded my attention. It was such a stunning place. I was definitely getting some of those magical travel feels. It was a very nice walk exploring that garden, but now it is time to explore the rest of Salzburg. I don't really have a plan per se, but what I want to do is really take advantage of the daylight while I still have it and this amazing weather. So I just want to wander around, see what I see, take a lot of photos, and just enjoy the day. And then food. This is just so picturesque. I mean, I know there's a lot of streets like this in Europe, but coming from New York City, I am definitely not used to this, and I'm loving it. I made my way to the Salzburg River, where I was treated with views of the most spectacular landscapes. The cloudy, gloomy weather I experienced earlier in the day gave way to blue skies and sunshine. I felt incredibly lucky to have such marvelous weather. I simply wasn't expecting it. This view would be so perfect if it were not for that damn tower crane just blocking everything. While I was getting hungry, I wasn't going to any restaurant until the sun set. The weather was just too good to not take advantage of. After taking what felt like hundreds of photos and with the sun nearly set, I set out for food, but unfortunately I learned that restaurants in Salzburg typically close far earlier than what I'm used to. As a result, I found myself at McDonald's. It's not where I wanted to go, but I was starving and it was getting late. Nevertheless, I made the best of it and ordered items that are not available back in the US. I got an interesting burger with horseradish sauce, chicken strips, and a fascinating type of French fries. While my dinner was nothing special, it wasn't bad, and the fact that I was starving made the food even more appetizing. In fact, I feel like McDonald's is often better outside of the US. In the end, I was satisfied. After finishing my meal, I returned to the A&O Hostel. While I would have preferred to have stayed in a hotel, I was able to save a considerable amount of money. Traveling and dining at Michelin-starred restaurants are certainly not cheap activities. I spent a lot of time in the establishment's lobby, where I was able to work and charge my camera batteries and phone. The room, which I shared with 5 other people, wasn't anything special, and I unfortunately was assigned a top bunk. The actual building of the hostel was very strange. There were random staircases everywhere, which resulted in me getting lost a number of times. In fact, once I even ended up in the hostel's parking lot when I was just trying to find the damn lobby. In summation, I didn't have the best experience at Salzburg's A&O Hostel. So I slept terribly last night. I couldn't get comfy, the room was pretty hot, and one person was snoring. It wasn't good. And then when I did get to sleep, I got woken up at like 5 something by a guy who was leaving early, and then later I got woken up again by construction taking place right outside the hostel. So when I did manage to get out of bed, coffee was obviously the first thing on my mind, so I just went to the nearest place for caffeine, and that was Starbucks. And I had a decent breakfast, I did a little reading, and I'm excited about the day ahead. Because at the end of the day, I'm doing exactly what I love, and that is travel, although I hate that hostel. And with that said, it's time to get moving, start exploring Salzburg, and first things first, there's actually a church right near me, and it looks kind of interesting, so I'm gonna see if that's open. I went to St. Andrew's Church. From the outside, it had a striking exterior, but on the inside, it was a bit more subdued. Frankly, it wasn't as grand as I thought it would be, but it was worth checking out to satisfy my curiosity. Besides, I knew that I was about to explore a very epic church as I made my way to the historic area of Salzburg. I purchased a ticket to Salzburg Cathedral, and that definitely did not disappoint. The interior was epic. The details on the ceiling are just exquisite. Absolutely amazing. Salzburg Cathedral was completed in the 17th century in the Baroque style.
The church was even the place where Mozart was baptized.
These have got to be the most uncomfortable benches in the entire world.
I definitely had a nice time exploring the cathedral from its altars to its crypt. Plus, when I was about to leave, an organ concert began, but that would have been an extra cost to my ticket, so I didn't stay.
Wow, that church was stunning. Now I bet the organ concert would have been nice, but I didn't pay for it, and I didn't feel that it would be fair to enjoy something that I didn't pay for, and plus, ripping off a church, doesn't sound good. Besides, I did hear the organ concert at St. Peter's in Vienna, so I mean, I at least have that. Alright, now I think it's lunchtime. So I don't have any plans for lunch though, rather I just want something quick and easy, and I'm gonna focus on later having a large dinner. So let's go find something to eat.
On my search for food, I spotted a couple of people stepping into a church. It sparked my curiosity and I thought that I better check it out. I entered the Franciscan Church and I was glad that I did. It's an architecturally stunning building and is in fact one of the oldest churches in Salzburg. I loved the ceiling. It had the most spectacular pattern. Plus, even the organ started playing. I was definitely glad that I decided to make that detour for my lunch, but it was time to get back on schedule. I stopped at another sausage stand for a light meal. I was planning on having a big dinner later that was going to be a hell of a lot better than McDonald's, so I didn't want to fill up. I got a Bosna sausage. In fact, that sausage has even been said to have originated in Salzburg.
So that was a solid, simple lunch. The sausage was very flavorful, nice and juicy, good texture. I like the toasted bun. Yeah, it hit the spot. So now the plan is to get a shot of espresso, get caffeinated, and then I'm gonna see Mozart's residence and birthplace. I'm really excited about that one.
I made my way towards Mozart's birthplace, and it seemed that in every direction I looked, I saw Mozart's face or name promoting something. I then spotted a sign for espresso at an ice cream shop called Eisgrotte. While I only planned on getting some caffeine, I saw how affordable the ice cream was and decided on getting a cone, which was only €1.50. Seeing all those depictions of Mozart persuaded me that I needed the Mozart flavor of ice cream. Yeah, I didn't know that Mozart was a flavor either. In fact, one of the top souvenirs from Salzburg are Mozart chocolates, which was what my ice cream flavor was based off of. It was pretty tasty. That ice cream cone was a solid treat. After finishing, I was off to Mozart's birthplace. The building and museum is one of the most popular attractions in Salzburg, and subsequently I waited in line a bit for my ticket. Soon enough, I was exploring the site where Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born on January 27, 1756. The museum serves as a showcase for Mozart's life from his days as a childhood prodigy to his time as an adult. There were a number of fascinating items on display, such as letters, memorabilia, and even historical instruments like Mozart's violin. I knew beforehand that Mozart died young. He was only 35 when he passed away, but he truly made the most of his life, producing more than 800 musical works and cementing himself as one of the greatest composers of all time. In fact, I was so inspired by Mozart that I purchased a small bust of the figure as a souvenir, which will remind me of just how much one can accomplish even in a short amount of time.
I just finished with the museum and I really enjoyed that. I spent a lot of time in there. I read every little thing and I felt like I learned a ton about Mozart. It felt pretty special to be in the place where one of the world's greatest musical talents was born. I'm also happy because now I have Mozart stuck in my head as opposed to the songs from The Sound of Music, which those were still great, but Mozart is better. As far as what I'm gonna do now, I'm not really sure. It's still too early for dinner, but I really don't have any plans, so I think I'm just gonna walk around a bit and see what I see.
I did exactly that. I simply explored new sections of Salzburg that I haven't seen. It felt good to slow things down and just have time to take photos and admire the beauty of the spectacular city that I was in. Soon enough, it was dinner time, and I actually had a place in mind, unlike the day before. I went to Gasthof Goldgasse, a restaurant that's recommended in the Michelin guide and even in the past maintained a bit gourmand. Once I was seated, I got to admire the atmosphere, which was rustic and cozy, and I certainly appreciated the feel of the restaurant. Goldgasse serves traditional Austrian cuisine, but a unique aspect of the establishment is that a number of their dishes are new interpretations of recipes from an old Salzburg cookbook published in 1719. Frankly, everything on the menu sounded pretty good to me. In terms of beverages, there was a modest selection of wine. I decided to get a glass of the Gruner Veltliner Weinfilter DAC 2023. One thing that I learned early on during my Austrian adventure was that a standard wine pour in Austria is typically not as generous as your average pour in the US. Fortunately, the prices for wine are considerably more affordable in Austria. My wine was pleasant. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it went well with my food. First up, I ordered the bread plate, which did come with an extra charge, but that's pretty common in Europe and unfortunately is becoming more typical in the US. However, it was a pretty good looking plate of food for just over €4. It contains spelt bread with farmer's butter and a spring herb spread along with some ham, which the restaurant labeled as Austrian bacon. Now the bread was fresh, it was decent, but the butter and spread really made the dish as both of the accompaniments were so smooth and had so much flavor. I also enjoyed the ham, which had such a wonderful smoky taste. Overall, it was a good start to my dinner and I didn't have to wait too long to be presented with my appetizer. I went with the asparagus cream soup with guinea fowl breast and watercress. I love asparagus and subsequently the soup was a real joy to eat. The broth was so light, almost airy, but it had such a fantastic asparagus flavor. What really perplexed me was the guinea fowl on the side. Was I supposed to put it in the soup or eat it separately? I wasn't sure, but I started consuming it just as it was and really enjoyed it. The meat was perfectly cooked. It was so tender and flavorful. I loved it. Overall, the soup was a winner. Next up was my main course, the deep-fried chicken Goldgasse in a copper pot with potato salad, crispy parsley, cranberries, and a homemade tartar sauce. I was particularly excited about that course since it was noted on the menu as being one of the dishes that was reinterpreted from the restaurant's 1719 cookbook. First, I squeezed a bit of the lemon over the chicken by using a device that I hardly ever see at restaurants, and then I took my first bite. The chicken was very tasty. Even though it was essentially fried chicken, it felt refined, but also rustic and comforting. I really liked it. All of the accompaniments on the plate, from the cranberries to the tartar sauce, provided more delicious and complementary flavors to the meat, which made for a very delightful dish. Surprisingly, I also loved the potato salad. Normally, I find potato salad to be a generally boring side dish, but Goldgasse's example was fantastic. It was probably the best potato salad that I've ever had. Overall, I really enjoyed the chicken and everything on that plate. But now it was time for dessert, and I was on a mission to try a dish that I've only had once, a few years back in New York. It was at the once Michelin-starred restaurant Weisse, where I had a Salzburger Nockerl, and it was one of the best desserts that I had that year. The dish is a culinary specialty of Salzburg, and I knew that I had to order it. However, Goldgasse's version was meant for sharing, and it was pretty expensive, costing almost €24. But I traveled a great distance to Salzburg, and I wasn't leaving without trying it. When the dish was presented to me, I thought, what the hell have I gotten myself into? This wasn't a portion meant for two diners. It was like something that you would see at a buffet with the intention of feeding a group of people. While I became doubtful that I would be able to finish it, I was nevertheless excited. It looked epic and I wasn't disappointed. A Salzburger Nockerl is basically like a sweet souffle that is typically paired with a fruit sauce. Goldgasse's version was filled with a raspberry sauce, plus there were 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream on the side. I really enjoyed the dish. It was so light and delicate. Basically, it was like eating a sweet and airy cloud. The raspberry sauce provided another flavor profile and a bit of tartness, which was very welcomed. The vanilla ice cream was a great accompaniment as well. While I thought that I wouldn't be able to finish the dish, it wasn't as intimidating as it seemed. It was just so light and perfectly balanced, and the next thing you know, I finished the whole thing. I was pretty impressed with myself, and my server was too. It was now time for the bill, which totaled to 73.90 euros, but with my tip, I spent just under 85 euros. In US dollars, my dinner, including the tip, would total to almost 93 bucks, which I thought was well worth it.
Ah, that was damn good. That was a hell of a meal. So far, that's been the best meal I've had in Austria. I mean, I really liked everything about that restaurant, from the service to the atmosphere, and of course, the food. That Salzburger Nockerl, that was something else. The second the guy put it on my table, I was thinking to myself, holy it's a good thing I went to 3 churches yesterday. But damn, that was good, and it felt so nice to finally have a Salzburger Nockerl again after all these years. It certainly lived up to my expectations and exceeded them. Overall, my Salzburg adventure so far has been absolutely amazing, and I'm so happy and so lucky to have this opportunity to do what I love, to travel, to eat. It is perfect. Although it's not truly perfect. I mean, that hostel still kind of sucks, but it is worth putting up with. And with that being said, it's time for me to get back to exploring this wonderful and magical city of Salzburg.